So do you feel good? Have you done this before? Anything like this?
I've been on a lot of Zooms, but I
Okay,
haven't
good.
done like an interview. I've shied away from them.
Okay.
Scott keeps
No,
telling me I need to do them.
I think so. I mean, after reading your book, I go, oh yeah, yeah. She needs to she needs to talk more about this stuff. Hey there. Welcome back to Pod and Deliver. I'm very excited this evening. We have a friend here with us, Deborah. Deborah, now I just had the chance to read your book, and I just want to let the reader, not the readers, but the listeners know that you are a writer, and there's more to you, of course, than writing. But can you tell us a little bit more? How would you describe yourself besides being a writer?
Well, writing has sort of consumed me more recently. But yeah, I'm a cat herder. I have very much,
Pattern. Very good.
and a mother of two very time-consuming individuals, but I love them dearly.
Very nice. You know,
Sometimes I'm a work widow.
oh wow, your husband does like to work. I know that.
Yes.
Deborah, I just had the chance to read Magical Miri. Miri. I don't want to go like Latin on it. Magical Miri, but it's like Miriam is the girl's name.
Right.
And so I do want to ask you a question before I didn't I hadn't really thought it out before, but this is a series of books, correct?
Yes.
Now this is the first book of a series, correct?
It's the first book of the
Okay.
series, but not the first book written. So, yeah.
Oh, you wrote a book in this series before this one, Magical Miri?
Yes, I started with Nara, and it was part of a book box,
Okay.
and I realized that wasn't the beginning of the story. And so when the
Oh.
book box ended, I started at the beginning because Miri is Nara's mother.
Right, right, right. Um, oh, I have to read that because when I read this book, there's a lot of questions regarding these characters. I go, this, and then when it ended, I go, oh, there's more to this story. And and there's so many characters, and there's a character. I don't want to spoil the book here because this is not a true review, but in a way though, I do want to say this. There's a really strong female characters and the male characters are strong too, but I feel like the female characters are a lot more, a lot stronger.
Well,
But
the focus is on the females.
the
So
focus is on the
you
females,
don't see the male strength so much.
right? At least in this book I read, and
Mhm.
but I had some questions on some of these guys. Boy, I mean, Caleb and even Philip. I have question marks, but anyway. But that being said, why do you see how do you see yourself like as you're writing? I know you're a female, of course, but why do you think you have these strong characters? I mean, I see the sisters. I mean, do you feel I don't want to be bold here, but is that more like on your background? Because you have a sister. Uh, I mean, has anybody
You
ever
know,
said that to you?
so my sister has been a bit of a discussion because I didn't start writing till after she passed.
Okay.
And I honestly feel like in the beginning at least, she was with me, writing with me, like a co-author. And we started with becoming. And when I did Nora Nara, which is up there, it was sort of looking at what it was like from her point of view, trying to communicate with the family she left behind. They couldn't hear her, couldn't see her, couldn't react to her. So that's where that started. And yeah, I guess I have strong women in my family, definitely. But I think what I was addressing more is I want girls and women to feel okay to step into their strength and be empowered and not be pushed down by society. So, and I know girls, especially I see it through my daughter, they deal with a lot. They deal with a lot. So I
Because
want
this is
them to
like
feel.
a coming of age book.
Mhm.
So I thought it was gonna be all about magic, and there was, of course, there's magic there. And I know Ruben had a question a second. I'll let him ask in a second, but uh, it really more was about. I felt like it was more about family. Sister relationship, mother daughter relationship, grandmother relationship, and is that what you really want the reader to kind of get out of it too? This is also about family.
Yeah, this story is really about family with the magical element. So.
Yeah, that was the question I was going to ask. As an English teacher, the category would you say is more of like a fantasy or um,
Yeah,
What was the
yes,
category?
fantasy. It's paranormal within fantasy, but a
Okay.
little bit of dark fantasy because you got New Orleans is a very dark,
Yeah.
dark pocket of elements.
But I was gonna ask you, you speak pretty well of the magic, and there's even some vampire stuff in this book, right? Um, what is your background in that? Because I didn't know that you had knowledge. I mean, of course, I know you could read and all that, Deborah, but I mean, I know you're capable of reading, but
I learned
I
to
didn't
read
know
in
that was your
school.
interest. Did you do research on that? And also, real quick, I hate to have all these questions. Also, in New Orleans, because you must have gone to New Orleans because you speak
I've
so
been there
well.
several times. Yeah.
Okay, okay,
And I've experienced okay, so yes, I did research before I started actively writing. I did a blog. I did a weekly bit called Immortal Monday, where I looked into topics that I researched, everything from the paranormal to the gods, and I covered those things. But yes, there is a lot of personal experience in those books. So I guess I've always been a little sensitive. And
okay.
I tell you, some of the streets of New Orleans just have an ugly vibe.
I believe it.
So you, in a way, were inspired by your visit to New Orleans, and would you recommend that to like a young writer, maybe to experience sensory things like visiting a city, or I know
Yes.
you mentioned the influence of your sister, your late sister, but you would recommend that as a tool maybe to write.
It helps to immerse yourself in an area, I think, and just feel it, because you can do a lot with Google Maps, sure, as far as looking areas up, but you don't get the feel for it. Or you can Google what areas smell like, but it's not the same as experiencing it. So, I mean, you go down Bourbon Street, it doesn't smell good. you know?
Okay. I've always wanted to go, Deborah, because of the food and the music. But then
Mhm.
when you brought this element in, I go, well, I'm not sure if I want to go to New Orleans. It's like it wasn't like saying, "Hey, this is the best city in the world." It was like, I don't. There's some craziness there, you know?
There is. There's some, yeah, but I don't think you'd really see it. You'd be there on a tourist level, you'd be fine. And there's some fabulous food and some amazing music.
Okay, good.
I didn't mention this before, Deborah. I just jumped in. I do want to say congratulations, first of all.
Thank
Uh,
you.
Many people have wished to start on their first, but from what I've read, from what I've seen, you have at least 5 books written.
15.
Okay, I'm just looking at this one series right now.
I think you're
You
looking at
have
the
written,
series, right? I mean, this series has about 4 or
so
5
you've
books,
written
right?
15 books,
Mm.
and that's incredible. I guess I would ask you, for those people who struggle with that blank page, just getting started, what has helped you overcome procrastination if you ever had it, or any type of writer's block? What gets you motivated to write?
So I think every writer has suffered writer's block, and it's nothing to be ashamed of. And I'm sort of in the middle of a writer's block right now. Because I'm doing a series. I've got books 1 and 2 written, and my characters went totally off script in book 2. So now I'm trying to adjust book 3. And so, writer's block. I find that stepping away from it is a good start. Stepping away from the project, the more you stare at it, the more you're just going to focus on the same thing over and over. Step away. Water therapy is really good. The Morrigan Dragon actually started with water therapy. A friend said, let's write a story about a carnival. I'm like, what am I going to do? And it's not just the feel of the water, it's the sound, the static sound that helps clear your mind and let the muses talk to you, right? So there's that. Of course, music. A lot of writers listen to music because certain songs will inspire scenes and get things rolling in your head. I find driving without passengers, driving,
Right.
maybe on the highway where you're not dealing with a lot of streets, that'll help too. So those are some of the things. And then bouncing ideas off of people, living life, reading, watching movies. You'll get an emotion from something. You're like, oh, what can I do to recreate that emotion in my story? and then that'll get your wheels turning in maybe a different direction.
I really like that. I mean, the idea, Deborah, the idea of writer's block is a normal thing. Everybody gets it. It's okay. Don't panic. Move out. Move away for a bit because you're so close to it sometimes that you need to be objective. You need to walk away. I was just reading this week. I'm not sure if you are familiar with the Coen brothers films,
Mm-hmm.
but they were in the middle of writing a movie called Miller's Crossing, and they got writer's block. They didn't know how to proceed, and they just abandoned it for a while. Not abandoned it. They left it alone, and they started writing Barton Fink, and then they go, "Oh, we know what to do with this one," and they went back to this months later and finished it. So, walking away, finding things to connect with nature, solitude for a minute. It's hard if you have children, but sometimes if you can get time away, I really like that that idea. So, good
Yeah.
point.
Yeah, it's just, you need to give your brain a break, and then it'll start to flow. It'll come to you. So,
I was thinking when I was reading your book, I was like so excited because I'm like, oh, after a while, I forgot that I knew the writer. I'm like, I was just reading the book, and then I go, oh, no, I know the writer. And so then I was excited because I was gonna ask a couple questions about the book. But I do think about other people who brought books to me and friends, and I know they all have different processes regarding starting to write. But what kind of advice would you give to a young writer regarding starting out? Because I think I mean, even like Ruben and I have this podcast, and people come to us all the time. Oh, how do you start a podcast? And it's not too difficult. But I know writing's a lot more intricate. What kind of advice would you give to that new writer who hasn't ever written before?
well, I think I started like any new writer, and I just pantstered my way through book one, and then cried when I learned the rules. um,
Hmm.
so I use like the 8 plot point to start my book, which is basically your where you start is your like status, where the story begins. Then you have your inciting incident, which triggers your story, right? Sends you on your quest. You have a series of surprises that just drag you deeper and deeper and deeper into things, building the tension until you get to the point where you need to make like a major decision, your critical choice, what's going to happen. And that's where you learn maybe the true depth of your protagonist's character and personality, what the choices they're going to make, which leads to your climax, what's happening, and then your resolution is the consequences of that climax, and then wrap up your story.
So they basically need to know,
as much as you can if you're continuing on to another book. So
it's true to have that beginning, middle, and climax. You have to have that and I saw
right.
it. Okay.
So,
You
but
make
what?
it.
Oh, go
Oh, I'm
ahead.
sorry.
I was just gonna say what happens with me is I start with that, and then my characters dance all over the line and jump into other dimensions, and they just so I turn into a planster, which is a cross between a plotter and a pantster because they don't stay to the plan. Characters come alive in your head, at least for most writers I talk to. They usually have their own plans.
That's really good. It reminds me of something else I just read by Stephen Pressfield, The War of Art, where he says, you have this plan, and you mentioned the muses because he brings up the muses a lot. But once you lay out the foundation and sit and write, then the muses come to you, and you have different ideas that serve your foundation, but it's just that sitting down and knowing where you're going, more or less. Do you, when you brought out that inciting incident and things like that, do you have to remind yourself of that? Do you have that structure, or you already intuitively know, and because you've done it so many times?
Well, the story tends to get kind of stuck in my head, so I know. And the inciting incident is usually within the first 3 chapters, so it's happening pretty quick in your process. It's getting to the next point with your surprises, and maybe you find out your villain isn't who you thought it was. Like there's maybe the villain's a puppet or somebody else. Things start surprising you as you're writing, and again, that's probably the music saying, "Hey, what about this? What about this?" And this is going to make your story even more twisted and enticing. So I usually follow them. See where it goes.
Did you go to school
Go ahead.
for this, or did you had your own little research and develop ideas like that?
So what I did was, when I had this story that started nagging me that I just couldn't get out of my head, I I didn't trust myself because I'd never written, and my English teachers and I weren't necessarily, the best of buds. I wasn't a horrible student, but it wasn't my best subject. Actually, I was best in math. Go figure. So um I signed up at the time for a children's literature correspondence course because we didn't really have the internet yet. And so I was doing it via mail, and everything was very promising. So then when I got on the internet, I joined a bunch of different groups, got some critique groups, and now I'm basically in support groups with courses and things I can follow to help me learn more or enforce what I already know. And I feel like I constantly need to be reinforced because every author deals with like imposter syndrome, where at some point you feel like, yeah, I don't belong here. So that's what I do now.
You still feel that way after 15 books? Feel like you don't belong?
Oh, sure. Sure.
Wow. I feel the same way as teacher. I go, well, who's teaching this?
I do want to underscore what you just said, Deborah, that you weren't entirely sure. You had that nagging book in your head, but you went to get some feedback and also get some guidance on how to put together from this group. But and earlier you mentioned the importance of, during writer's block, of feedback, because some people are writing their books by themselves, isolating themselves, trying to create this thing, and you need this community of writers, don't you? And I just want to underscore that, because that's what's led to your success. It's part of your success.
Well, I listen, but you have to also take some of it with a grain of salt, because some of them really think they know and they don't. Because if they start pushing your story just completely where it no longer clicks with you, then it's
That's
not
good. So you have to
So-
kind of, look at it all and just kind of process it. Okay.
balance it, find the right balance for you. Because I started that process in '98 with this book, and I didn't publish that book till 2015.
Oh, wow. But what, as I was
kept
reading though,
going at it. You never gave
wow.
up, and you just kept going. 2015.
Yeah.
See, a lot of people don't have that tenacity, but I think it's instructive to listen to your story, because when people have these artificial years, like they'll think, or the artificial timelines, where they'll think, if I haven't finished this within a year, if I haven't finished this within 3 years, but no, you understood the long, that tenacity is very important to hear stories like that. So that's kudos to you.
Well, I think the first one takes you the longest. So
Okay.
I haven't finished more than a book a year now. I mean, I put out the entire Gifted Girl series in 1 year. That about killed me.
Oh, wow.
So, but
But
yeah,
what
that
keep-
first book is the learning process where you make mistakes, you make a lot of changes.
I bet. But what keeps you writing though, Deborah? I mean, I know you have a family. And what does it do for you? I mean, how does it make you feel? I mean,
Well, it's a passion. So I think anyone who has a passion understands what you must follow. It's something I have to do. And the stories are writing themselves in my head, whether I'm typing them out or not. So they'll just keep in there. Like I have multiple personalities living in my head, and I need to get them out. So, I'm working on one story now, which I have 2 of 5 books written, none of them published yet. And they're busy talking, but I got 2 other complete different series already talking in my head, and I haven't even typed the first word yet. So for writers that tend to come up with a lot of stories, that's what's going on. Their head is full of conversations and things going on that don't necessarily belong to them, and so they want to get it out. And I love interacting with my readers and bringing them joy when they get excited about stories.
and how do you communicate with them? Is it through like when the book sales, when they review it, or is it email? How's that work?
I have a street team, which is a group on Facebook that they can join. And then we interact there. And that's probably where I'm most active. When my PA prods me and says, hey, you need to get on and talk. because I'm a very introverted individual. So yeah.
But this gets you out there. I mean, when you write, I mean, yes, you're introvert, but this is a process to get that art out there, correct? And it must be so fulfilling to when it's all done.
Yes, to some, yes. Yes, I
Wait,
feel
to some you really say to some degree?
agree. It's the if you want to treat writing as more than just a hobby, there's a lot of things you got to do that for introverts is just not your ideal. You know, it's putting yourself out there on social media, and it's very time consuming. And I don't know, some people may be able to write a post in like a few minutes. I spend way too much time thinking about that post. And then I'll post it and my husband will be all like, you got a typo.
Yeah, that's a real critical point you're making, because I'm involved in stand-up comedy, and it's not just stand-up comedy that you do. To build a fan base or a following, you have to be on social media, you have to post things, you have to interact. And a lot of people, just like you, Deborah, is like, man, this is not what I signed up for.
Right.
But
Right.
how else are people going to find out about you? And it's just a learning curve, but you're doing it, and that's fantastic. Do
You're
you?
go ahead, Win.
Yeah, go ahead, Chip.
No, I was gonna say you look at yourself as an independent writer. When I say that is you independently produce your books? Is that how it works,
Yeah.
Deborah?
I mean, you can submit to the publishers if you want to. Small press, you're really not going to get the advertising dollars. I've seen some things where I prefer indie over those, and then the big traditional publish. Unless you're like the top sellers, you know, the big ones, they're not going to put the money into you. So there's a lot of potential for success in indie. You just have to treat it like a business. I mean, you need to put the thought, the time, the money into editing, you know, and not just proofreading, true editing, line editing, content
Right.
editing, and then covers. Covers are very important. You can't draw your own cover. You can't buy a cheap, you know, you can't have your kid draw a cover. You got to spend, and you got to know what's popular in the market, because you want to be, you know, you got to look at what the top books are and go, I want my book to compete with that. So you want your covers to be, you know, in line with that. Your blurb, oh my gosh, blurb writing is so different than the story, and a lot of authors hate it. So there's a lot that goes into that.
So
Yeah.
it's just not just the writing. It's a whole process. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I went indie because I liked having control
Okay.
over, um, you know, I did submit Becoming at one point to a publisher, and they said, yeah, I changed this. And I'm like,
You want to have your voice still out there. You don't want someone just totally taking that away.
right. And sometimes they're right and sometimes they're not. And that's why I make sure to have a lot of, I always get the opinion of a true editor, not a, you know, someone says I'm an editor because they want to edit, you know,
Right.
someone who's schooled in it. So,
But to be clear, we can still order these like on Amazon,
sure.
that type of thing. So they're
They're out there.
available, and on Kindle, I believe too.
Yeah. So, most of my books are currently on Kindle, in Kindle Unlimited, which means you cannot get them in ebook version elsewhere, because Kindle Unlimited doesn't let you offer it elsewhere.
Hmm.
But that's the KDP program. And then Magical Miri and that series went out of that, so that they're available on Kindle, but not in the unlimited program. So that's why they're going wide. And we're going to try to start taking my books wide. And if you're not familiar, Kindle Unlimited is where you pay a monthly fee, and then you can
Yeah.
just download however many books, yeah, and trade them in. So they're available in print elsewhere. At least most of them are. I kind of held back the Gifted Girl series while we're doing the ebook run. So, but yeah.
It's like a business. This is a true. I mean, there's so many aspects to it, elements, and you have people helping you out, though. Obviously,
It's not enough.
not enough. Okay,
It's not like a business. It is a business.
it is a
And
business.
because you can, if you want your books everywhere and you don't want to do the hassle, you can do programs like Draft to Digital, which will put your book everywhere. But you can go direct, putting it on Kobo yourself, and Apple and Barnes and Noble and Google Play, and then have it sent to the OnDrive, the library sources. So, yeah.
Okay.
A lot
Yeah,
of
because
work.
I just could be for somebody out there seem like there's, oh wow, I don't even want to do this if there's so much to it. But like you were saying though, if you have that story in your head and you have to get it out, you just have to get it out, right?
Right. And if it's overwhelming, you can just stick with one platform, you know?
Okay.
You don't have to put it on all these platforms. You just have the opportunity to reach more readers the more platforms you're on.
I did want to ask you a question about your family. How have they responded from not only your immediate family, I mean your mother, but others? Have they been supportive? Has this been, because this is a big undertaking, like you said, this is a business. So how has that affected them
Yeah,
and you?
they've been amazingly supportive. Yeah, considering, end up spending a lot of money on editing and advertising and um, website maintenance,
Yeah.
domain and all that, newsletter storage.
Do they also give you any input on the works on the books? They say, hey, this was my favorite one, or this is something that I want to read again, or
So, I think we discussed this before, my kids being sort of on the spectrum. My daughter only reads, well, she doesn't even read that anymore, manga or North Korean
yeah,
stuff, um, biographies from North Korea. But my son, if it's not like some sort of thing on the internet, he doesn't read it. So my husband's read some of the stuff, but he's like,
yeah.
he's always working. Um, so
Well, Deborah, I try to get my wife to listen to our podcast, and I'm working at that as well. I go, wait a minute, you're my wife. But it isn't true though. People have lives, and they just, we love what we do, we enjoy, and really, even our channel, it's for teachers mostly. But although we try to bring in other people, and that we think it's, some of our episodes definitely reach out to, everyone, the whole general population. But it's just, and they know us, right? And then they're gonna love us anyway if we write, or if we don't write, or if we have a podcast or not. Correct?
right, well, I've never played the game Scott produces, so I can't really complain.
Okay, there you go. What's that game again? I mean,
Call of
are we
Duty.
allowed to? Is it Call of Duty? Okay, okay, that's right.
Yeah, you could tell he works
It's
on Call of
big. It's, yeah. But geez, no, when I saw you in your books, I'm gonna be honest with you, Deborah. I usually read historical books and like how to, or like better, bettering yourself and all that. And so I hardly ever read fiction. And I
Duty.
said, oh, this is a fiction book. Am I going to enjoy fiction? And I realized that as I was reading your book, this is good for me because I'm such a boring dude. I need to read some fiction in my life. I think Ruben reads way more fiction than I do. But you taught me a little lesson. Hey, Jacob, what read a couple of fiction books a year, please. And I want to thank you for that because I really enjoyed your book. And I was excited that I knew you, but I said, "Oh gosh, this lady's a writer. She knows what she's doing here." I say that because I've read some of their books, and people that I know, and I go, "They're good." But this I really enjoyed, so I thank you for bringing it out to the public.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Yeah.
And
Yes. Thank you, Deborah.
yeah, thanks for being here with us and sharing your process, and even being real with us that this is a business and this is something you enjoy, and because like you said, you want to get these stories out. And can you just tell us what your next before we let you go, your next book, and when we're going to see that?
Well, I got to get book 3 written before anything on book 1 gets out there.
Okay.
But it's going to go a little more adult, but it's going to be a slow burn.
Okay.
Um, Still paranormal. It's a different dimension dealing with reapers that need to visit a citadel where souls haven't been collected for over 100 years. So
Wow.
it's a little messy there.
Okay. There you
Very
go, audience.
intriguing. I like it.
Very cool. Thank you, Deborah, for joining us on Pod and Deliver, and we appreciate you coming here and telling us about your process and so forth, then you have yourself a great night.
Thank you. You as well.
All
Bye.
right. Bye, guys.